Good evening. Tonight, China is determined, despite tariffs, to win the energy race with the U.S. Seoul, Korea, wants to create its own version of SpaceX. We'll look into that. Firefly seeks a $5.5 billion valuation in IPO. Senegal is the 56th country to sign the Artemis Accords. I have a comment. NASA says, unfortunately, is losing 20% of its workforce. Space Perspective has been bought up by a Spanish company. And Elon, of all people, wants to get into the space-based manufacturing game. All this with our guest, Kamil Muzyka, right here. From the news desk at Center for Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. As you know, this program is sponsored by the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. We champion and strengthen emerging space startups, space scalable businesses, and space adjacent enterprises worldwide through advisory, access, and advocacy across the funding spectrum. Our programs fortify business plans and investor readiness for founding teams at varying levels of development. Now, a lot of our work, especially this podcast, is supported by our listeners and fans like you. So if you go to the QR code at the upper left of the screen, it'll take you right to our donation portal. Keep helping us out. A little in the tip jar each month makes a big difference. Thanks in advance. And now, finally back from his travails, my dear friend for many, many years in the space community, Michael Lane from Liftport. Hey, man.
Hey.
So I understand your mom's okay.
Hold on. There we go. Mom is doing fine. I actually want to kind of give a little bit of a PSA about that.
Okay.
So my mom's 80. She's a healthy 80-year-old. We go walking 2 or 3 miles just about every week. There are not a lot of 80-year-olds that can just get up and start walking, 2 or 3 miles. So good for her. Really happy about that. And Saturday, she texted me early in the morning and said she didn't sleep well. She had her shoulders hurt. She thought it was her pillow. She thought it was just not sleeping well. And thanks, Maury. Appreciate it. And later that, like 10 o'clock, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go see Superman. You want to go see it? And no response, which is kind of unusual. About 12:30, she says, I got the ER. I'm in the ER. I got an ambulance to take me to the ER. And I'm like, okay, tell me more when you have a minute. Or I'm like, are you okay? She's like, yeah. And that's the thing. She said, yeah. Over the weekend, my mom coded twice, had a rapid response team in. She was in 5 hospital rooms in 2 different hospitals, and she wound up getting a pacemaker installed. But for the first 36 hours, they thought she had maybe pneumonia. She had a high white blood cell. She couldn't breathe. And so they were thinking she had pneumonia for the first X number of hours. And then when they transferred her to a cardiac unit, they transferred her to a heart failure unit. That's what the big placard on the wall says, heart failure unit. And yeah, I called friends and family. I thought my mom was going to die over the weekend. And kind of amazing, kind of miraculous. They put in a pacemaker and immediately reacted better. Her pulse got down to the 40s, right into the 40s or lower sometimes. When she was awake and alert and her pulse was up into the 60s and 80s, she was fine. She was chatty. She was completely normal. When she went to sleep, it would plummet into the 40s or lower. Alarms would start going off. And as soon as they installed that little magic, she calls it her new best friend because it's like sitting right here over her chest. And I've never seen a faster recovery ever in my life. Yeah. No, it doesn't talk to her yet, but it will. We're going to get that.
Say hello to my little friend, you know? Yeah.
But you know, yeah. Doctor called it her new best friend, so she started calling it her new best friend. But you know, the PSA is this: over the last, prior to the last 50 years, most heart incidences were triggered towards men. Like all the research was done on men, all of the literature, all of the information. And so here's this woman who did not know what the symptoms of a heart attack look like. Mm-hmm. But here's what she did. She's 80. She has an Android phone. She knows how to use a smartphone.
Okay.
My dad flies helicopters. My dad flies helicopters. He does not own a smartphone. He does not want to understand. He can fly a helicopter, but he thinks that the new tech is too hard. So here's my mom on her phone Googling symptoms of a female heart attack. She's Googling that because she knows she can get the answers that she needs. But if she didn't have the phone, if she didn't know what to Google, if she didn't know how to Google, she called the nurse first because she's got a nurse on speed dial. The nurse told her to call 911. 911, the paramedics came by. They gave her the choice to get in the aid car. My mom walked out to it. She was fine. She just didn't feel good, right? And had any of those things happened differently, she would have died. I'm 100% sure of that. So, knowing what those symptoms are, having her know how to use the tools that were available to her.
That's good. That's good. People in that
and
generation,
now she's got all the apps. Yeah. She's got
people in that generation always
right. They don't.
If you're like a late silent generation, or actually an early stage boomer before the middle of the hump, you're less likely to be tech savvy than, say, boomers who were born after 1955.
None of her friends,
and on. They're far more tech savvy. Half of them invented the damn internet.
Yeah.
But before that, the early ones born after World War II, they don't care.
She was born January 45, so it wasn't quite over, but it was close. Jason, you're absolutely right, man. Morty, appreciate the good thoughts. So I appreciate everybody commenting last week when she was listening, because she's like, "What show are you doing? What are you missing?" She's great. She's doing fine. I just came back from the doctors from her. They're running blood tests. But my mom is up and wandering around, and she's got 24-hour care this week and probably into next week. But after that, her biggest thing was they
you see that? We're doomed. Other people can't listen to the show.
Other people can't see Sean's chat, but he's like, "We are doomed if parents not listen to the show." So get all your parents. Get all your parents.
Pithy guy. Should we get to some news?
All right, that's it. Let's get some news. Mom's doing great. Appreciate all the good wishes. Let's get to it.
The first one is something. Of course, this is the Hill, so it's going to be, you're going to throw some politics into it no matter what. And the way they do.
Wait. Jason, she's now a cyborg. I literally called him a cyborg about an hour and a half ago. Exactly what I said. I said you're bionic now. You're bionic.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Right.
Well, we have this thing. So,
all right, sorry. Which one?
The first one.
Which one do you want? I don't know which one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the first
Right.
one, yeah,
Okay.
tariffs won't stop if China if it wins the energy race. The issue there is, of course, uh, China in terms of tariffs and trade. You know, China is the biggest player that Trump's dealing with, and so they had to throw a lot of that in there. But the real issue that they're bringing up, they don't get to the meat of it until almost the middle of the article, which is sad. But they basically said they've discovered so much thorium in their home country that something's golf ball size would provide a person enough energy to last the rest of their lives. And so they've got like something like 60,000 years worth of thorium that they can make thorium reactors out of. And so it's like, even if we lose the tariff war, we're going to win the energy war. We're just going to slam everybody, and that's going to create some issues for some people who prefer, free trade. Yeah, but so and we should be diving into this, and I have hammered this story, for weeks now. It's like, and the only reason we don't do thorium reactors is because you can't get nuclear weapons out of them, and that's really the only reason we don't do it. Because the defense people want us to keep making the nukes if they have to. Someday this has got to break. And I don't know which way it's going to break, but it's important because they're coming. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're coming.
Yep.
And so we need to move on with this. Well, no, the reason we don't do helium-3 reactors is that we haven't really built one yet that works really well and is commercial. We're not there yet. That's why we always criticize helium-3 mining on the moon. For what? For reactors that don't exist and don't exist yet. I'm happy to wait.
Right. Now that part is changing, right? Because they're going after terrestrial markets that exist.
Okay. Okay. But but that was all I wanted to say about that. Moving on. There is in Korea, the Korea article. Now Seoul wants to create their own Korean version of SpaceX. And I thought, okay, well, good luck with that. Yeah. I don't know how you're going to do it. What are you going to spend to do that? But they have a homegrown space rocket. They're handing it over to the private sector, and they want to join the race. So
I've been saying for months now that national interests are going to keep fueling the rocket race, right?
They are.
That there's only so many rocket companies that can be built in the United States, but there's plenty of other countries that would love to have their competitors. We're going to talk about competitors to SpaceX here again in a moment, but so a lot of people don't know this. At the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, I wound up in a State Department program where I have now had 10 Korean students as interns, 10 of them. 4 were virtual, and honestly, nobody got that much out of that. But 6 of them, flew to America, spent $4,000 a month to be here. They were here for typically 8 months. And they were tremendous interns.
Yeah.
One of them was especially, 2 of them were especially good. And in that time, in the last 5 years, Korea has said, we're going to build a space program, and they built it. CASA, Korean Air and Space Administration. Modeling it after NASA, but they've been working with the United Arab Emirates for years, and they've been consulting on the Emiratis Mars program for at least 10 years. At least 10 years. So they're well positioned to build a rocket rocket system. They're well.
Korean academics have been around for a while. 40 years ago, literally, I just thought about this. I was at UW, and I was I took a course of material science, and one of the guys teaching it was a Korean guy that had just come
right
over,
on. Yeah.
He was a PhD student, and he was teaching this part of a material science course, and he was very, very good. And so, so this goes way back. So it doesn't surprise me, your experience at all.
Right on.
At all.
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
Coming up.
Okay,
Are you ready for this? Firefly Aerospace is doing an IPO, and they want to get a valuation of $5.5 billion when it's over. Will they do it? That's a lot. That's ambitious.
It is. But here's the thing. We were just talking about Korea.
Yep.
And they want to build their own competitor. But here's the thing. SpaceX's current valuation is $400 billion. Yep. And Firefly is a legitimate competitor, way smaller, obviously, way smaller. But this is a gigantic opportunity.
Well, the real issue for me is that they only had a valuation, of what was it? I think $2 billion in November of last year, right. And they'd raised another $175 million, in other ways, and that was their valuation just 9 months ago. And so now they want to trade the NASDAQ and add a couple of zeros to their valuation, and that's a lot. Now, Blue Moon, whatever it was, it landed. Blue Ghost, or I don't know.
Blue Ghost.
It landed. It was very successful. They want to do one of those missions every year now. That's part of that deal. I don't know if that adds up to a $5.5 billion valuation. I don't know yet. I'm skeptical.
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, only because they're not going the SPAC route. So they're going the Voyager route. So this will be kind of number 2 if you count it that way. The market is really hot right now. Did I see that JP Morgan and Wells Fargo are backing it? So that's
you need somebody like that in your hip pocket to do that anyway. I mean, it's IPOs are horrible. There's horrible things to do, and they're very expensive and time consuming, and they're still doing the road show, and it's got to be it's a mess. That's why I always try to encourage people not to do this unless you absolutely have to. Yeah.
I don't question. So I think you're right to question, can they jump from 2 to 6 billion? I'm rounding 2 to 6 billion in just 9 months of valuation. I think that's certainly worth questioning. But if you compare it to what they're trying to do, grow to SpaceX levels, but they have a specialization of landing on the moon, which is pretty rare. It's like one of 2 commercial companies. China's up there too. I don't know. I think this actually might be potentially undervalued, and I'm going to stand by that. I don't say that often, but I actually wonder. Full disclosure, I'm not buying into this. I'm not going to go and buy it, but I think I have a hunch this may seem like a bargain.
Well,
in the future.
The reason I remain skeptical is also because NVIDIA could achieve something like that, but because they are electrons and digits, not atoms and molecules. And so that's the big difference. It's a lot to work with all that. And I think Joe Luttrell's with us tonight. I loved his comments. His Firefly needs to actually launch and make orbit. Great people, but they are very slow.
Right.
You can't be very slow to do an IPO, man. You're planning on like moving fast and breaking shit. So
yeah, there's that's it. That they're definitely right about that. Now, I agree that's a fair criticism. If but I'm gonna stand by my prediction that 5.5 billion is going to seem low in a few years.
You heard it here first, folks. And so we can always bring this back to haunt him later.
Right? It's, you know, oh yeah. For folks, sorry, I'm gonna just break in with an update. Our wonderful intern Christina has gone through and built transcripts and summaries of all of our shows, all of them, and Unknown Quantity, and by the way, 3 of our other shows, which is remarkable. We'll be building them into their own pages per episode pretty soon. So, yep, this is going to get recorded right here, but it's also going to be transcribed. It's also going to be summarized, and somebody's going to be able to look it up and what my prediction was. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, next up, I've got this. This one is a 15-second one. I saw this thing and it was just reminded me of an old George Carlin joke. Senegal is the 56th country to sign the Artemis Accords. Now, this reminds me of the old Carlin joke. He said that 5 more nations signed the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. They were Chad, Sierra Leone, Upper Volta, Monaco, and Iceland. Yeah, you get the irony there. I mean, I'm seeing this with Artemis Accords 50 years later. You know, It's like, oh, are you kidding me? What's Senegal really going to add to the sum of light and knowledge in doing this? I mean, it's feel good and it's okay, but my biggest thing about all this is basically more like, can we have the Artemis Accords without Artemis? That's more important to me than who signs a piece of paper around the world.
Right. I'm kind of with Dr. Hanlon from last week on this, that the more that sign it, the faster it becomes common law. So whether they have a space program or not, they are philosophically aligned. And honestly, with the Cold War environment that we're in right now, the more philosophically aligned we can have, the better off the world's going to be.
Right.
So whether they have a space program or not, I don't care.
Are like doing their own things, and you know they're not. You don't see China coming up at that table.
Yeah. Morty asked the question: do they even have a space industry? Honestly, not that I'm aware of. But a few months ago, the 54 nations of Africa built their equivalent of a European Space Agency, and I think 11 nations joined that. I don't know whether Senegal was or not. Somebody on the internet can find that quickly, I think. But the community of Africa building an ESA-like program is very valuable, and I think that is going to have a lot of success. We've had 2 pretty successful teams that have competed in our business plan competitions and also our microgrant awards come out of Africa. I forget where one of them was. I don't know where either of them are right now.
I remember that.
But yeah, it's a developing. It's not that they're not developing nations, but they are developing space programs that I think will really bear fruit. Yeah. So I would watch that closely.
Since time is flying, I'm going to skip a couple of these things because there's a report that NASA says it'll lose 20% of its workforce. That's terrible. And of course, the Space Perspective is now officially gone. It was bought by its stuff was bought out by a Spanish company. And so that was bad. But I did want to go to this last one because that's the one that leads into our guest this evening.
Well, hold on that balloon for just a moment. We were in the room when somebody mentioned the other balloon company, Worldview, and Rick Tomlinson was sitting right in front of us groaning because they had lost a bunch of money off of Worldview. And Worldview and Space Perspectives used to be the same people, the same team. They split apart, but they pulled a lot of investors from both of those companies. So there, as far as I know, there are no American high altitude balloon tourism missions anymore.
I get it.
That's a change.
Sean's yelling at us. I got to get this last thing in.
Yeah.
And it's another Hill article, obviously, but it's also, but SpaceX has now decided they're going to get into the space-based manufacturing business. And and by 2030, they want to start doing things, mostly small stuff. They want to take a number of capsules, like miniature labs, and do a bunch of high-value research products out of them, and then return them to Earth independently. And they're already talking with potential customers. They call it Starfall. So, and they hope to envision this new business starting at the end of the current decade, so around 2030. But I wanted to throw in the kind of the state of play in regards to space manufacturing. There obviously are experiments on ISS. We got companies, Merck and Redwire, have shown promise of products. And so the question becomes, when does the promise become reality? 5 years from now or decades? And the Forbes article said that it was decades away, but a lot of other people say something completely different. And they already have several competitors right now, which is Haven from Vast, and then Axiom wants to plant a space station. Orbital Reef, a joint venture between Blue Origin and Sierra Space, and that's supposed to facilitate research and manufacturing and tourism. And they envision operations as early as 2027. And there's Starlab Space, and that's not related to SpaceX at all. And they want to.
No, that's Voyager's team.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of people in there right now, and so now they want to get into the game. It's kind of interesting to watch. And on that note, speaking about space manufacturing, I want to bring in our guest tonight. His name is Kamil Muzyka, a space lawyer who specializes in space manufacturing. We're going to talk about right now. He's also been a popular TEDx speaker, an ISRU educator, a futurist, a general space geek. He published a paper on space mining in the European Space Foundation in 2021, and he's published about 20 other papers on a variety of topics to space development and space mining and manufacturing. So, and he also happens to be on the board of the Polish Science Fiction Foundation. Our guest tonight, Kamil Muzyka. Come on in, man. Sorry to make you wait so long. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. No problem. It was nice listening to you guys. On that note, about those landing on the moon, I am still for having automated landing assistance, like a flight tower, automated flight tower for lunar landers. That would actually, with radars and information systems, that would actually make those landings easier and less dependent on the internal radars and other systems on the landers.
Sure. So to start out, which we usually do, give us a little bit about your origin story. How did you become a space manufacturing law expert?
It's a funny story because, well, I was raised in a home by a father who was an engineer, and I wasn't raised by a mother, but my mother is a patent lawyer. But anyway, the issue is that my father is a great, a passionate reader of science fiction. And as being raised by a father, I also went into the field of science fiction. So after doing my initial college years and ending with a master's thesis on patent law, because I love inventions from science fiction, so I wanted to pursue that. I pursued for a brief time AI law. I sometimes return to AI law, but the space is more of a bigger passion, and I'm more invested in it because, well, because of my training and well, because the amount of publications I produce on space manufacturing, the ISRU, and other topics related to space law. So how did I get to space manufacturing? I was initially doing a PhD in patent law, but I was trying to marry it with my current career in publishing articles on space law. And my thesis advisor told me that, well, you have to marry this space mining and patent law, Mr. Kamil. So you need to think about it. And then I actually thought, what processes with space mining can be a patentable subject matter? And I started looking for space manufacturing and found the Princeton the Princeton publications on space manufacturing, and it went downhill from there. Or is it a proper term going down here? Yeah, because in Poland we go, yeah, and then it went downhill, but it is a more, it's not negative. Okay, so it went smoothly from there.
Right.
Okay. So
wait.
So anyway-
I just want to pop in and say, while Kamil's grasp of English is very, very good, he doesn't always get idiom right. So it's not, things did not go downhill there. It went good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's 2:00 in the morning in Warsaw. So thank you for coming in from there. Yeah. So
By the way, it's our 10th anniversary, Michael.
I was
We
gonna
met
bring
10
that
years
up.
ago at the Space Camp.
I was gonna bring that up. All right, so tell that story. How do we know each other from 10 years back?
From the Bersel Copernicus Space Science Laboratory camp by, it was Exosphere. I don't know if they are still in operation but well, it was a very, very good space science laboratory, though it was in the peak of the summer of 2015. So 2 or 3 days of our training and lectures were actually at the pool because it was too hot to even have lectures.
This was, as far as I know, the world's only and first space elevator class. It was a 3-week class in Hungary, and it was great. There were about 35 students, some of whom I'm still in touch with. Kamil's one of them. And it was really kind of fascinating. For those who don't know, I don't have a very stellar academic record. And so my commitment, when they asked me to do it, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not gonna give any tests, and I'm not going to require any homework. But if they want, they can write a paper. And 6 different papers came out of that classwork. So really quite impressive. Those students were really quite interesting. I would love to get back in touch with them. And it is the 10-year anniversary because it was this week in 2015. So terrific. Kamil, beyond your father's influence in the science fiction, when I met you, you were still aiming for patent attorney. You did do that, right? Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, I will get my patent attorney paper after my PhD because that's the practice in Poland.
Okay.
You can go either the patent attorney's route or the PhD route.
Okay. All right. I think no,
it's more of a side specialization now than a central aim.
Right.
Because well, space policy to me is now more important, but patent law actually very much impacts how we think about space manufacturing, because every manufacturing process and the devices we use, the products we manufacture, like even the staple articles of manufacture, can fall under the regulations of patent law, especially if it's if the processes are used on board of a space object. And to be clear, we actually, for example, if we look at the ISRU part of space manufacturing, like the utilization of space resources, sure, we have the issues of patent law, meaning that, for example, somebody manufactures products and devices and uses them on board of space objects, but we have a problem with, for example, how do we treat chattel and other movables? Like you obtain those space resources. They are your property. You have the right to ownership, use, sell, and so
Mhm.
on, but they don't have a regulated status in neither the American law, Japanese law, Luxembourg law, or even the United Arab Emirates law. This is a large loophole here. And also, there is a different problem which also touches even more on patent law. The problem that we have is that you actually have something like a space manufactured object, something that if it would be launched from Earth, it would be treated as a space object, but you
Build
build
it.
it from space manufactured from space resources. So if there is no means to actually register the space object, so, taking for example the classical idea of what it was in the paper, well, in the publication Advanced Automation for Space Mission, the one with Robert Freitas and others, the self-replicating lunar factory. You put the seed factory, the basic space
Right.
object, on the surface of the moon, and it starts running. Well, it's controlled by AI or a remote or by a hybrid or form of control. Okay, not our problem. The problem is that if you don't register those parts that are being manufactured, those components, those robots, those solar panels, and so on, and especially those manufacturing facilities that would be created on the surface of the moon, you don't give anyone a let's say a guarantee that their patents would be enforced in this area, because a space object is also the territory of protection. It's a quasi territory like a vessel, but it's still considered under the patent territoriality, both under the Article 8 of the Outer Space Treaty and both under Article the paragraph 105 of Title 35 of the U.S.
Wait,
patent
wait,
law,
wait.
and also
Okay, is it wait? You got there's too much here. Let me break it down into parts.
okay,
So you know that I want to build a station at the Lagrange point. I presume
yes,
that I'm going to have a U.S. flag, right? On my
yeah, that's the
station.
U.S. registration.
Yep, on
Okay,
my station registered.
okay,
Hopefully other nations will be involved, but I think it's going to be a U.S. registered asset. Friends of mine, clients of mine are going to be digging up regolith and pulling the raw product up to L1 and doing manufacturing. I really think that is a potential future here. So are you saying that the stuff that we make, a solar panel, for example, the stuff that we make on orbit out of claimed resources from the moon, you're saying that that's a legal gray zone?
that's actually two
Okay.
things. Because under the US law, the common law, and also under the European equivalence of civil law, you are entitled to property
Right.
rights,
That's what I thought.
the removable
Yeah.
property rights, over those panels and so on. But there is a different type of ownership in space law. You have two types of ownership that the national ownership, meaning the registration, is actually heavily covered in space law. The personal ownership of a movable object, that's not exactly really covered in international space law. You actually need to have it established in your national regulations, because for example, if you create, for example, I had this discussion with Professor Stephen Freeland, which I would like to shout out here, because Professor Stephen Freeland is a very, very good professional in space law. We were discussing the idea that, okay, you created a bunch of hammers out of lunar titanium. So they are your property because you have manufactured it. But what are they in the context of space law? If they are and if they are not registered as a component or as a tool or as a space that belong to the space object, what are they? And well, the issue is that space law wasn't actually doesn't have the proper regulations, or there were regulations that would cover it under the Moon Agreement, but we all L5ers know what happened to the Moon Agreement, and yeah, we are happy about it. But anyway, okay, there are different problems. For example, for patent law, like for example, what happens if you actually because you need to recall that your station is can not only be not only the territory of protection, it can be a embodiment of a patented invention. Take for example a solar sail, a ship with a solar sail. The solar sail is an embodiment of an invention, and also the area of its protection. So it goes twofold. But anyway, in the case of, for example, okay, we treat space objects like a closed boxes of quasi-territoriality, and you could actually say that, okay, within the confines of this of the physical framework, those are where the limits of enforceability are actually are enforceable. Where the limits of enforceability of patent law and other national laws extend. Okay, the national laws do not extend beyond the confines of the space object. Sure, but what if you actually, in patent law, like for example, you have the extraterritoriality, where you have the doctrine, the effect doctrine, and the beneficial use doctrine. What if somebody uses the extruder to create for the process that the effect is outside of the space object, like for example the 3D printer?
Right.
That's space that there is no extension of jurisdiction. Yeah, as long as the hammer doesn't come to Earth. Yeah, there were even discussions on can somebody can a space tourist steal your hammer in outer space? And well, yeah, that's a problem, and that we are facing, especially with the concept that not everybody is an astronaut in outer space, and there are different roles applying, because astronauts are the envoys of mankind and have the diplomatic status, and spaceflight participants are covered under the astronaut rescue agreement, but not under the rest of the agreements. And yeah, I see, Jason, the von Neumann type equipment. I even used to consider the idea of the von Neumann doctrine, meaning that if for example, a space object that is a mobile, has something a factory and a mining machine that would produce another space object, that those space objects would retain, the nation that, the state of registry would also retain the jurisdiction and control and registration over the products of its own space manufacturing facility. Although there are several concepts, like Salameri's concept of the collective space object, that every new space object, every new space object is added as a component to those space objects. But in the context here, we have to understand that we don't have actually very good regulations on space manufacturing. We have regulations that declare that you have ownership over space resources, but we don't.
This is what it comes down to me. What I'm hearing is there's all sorts of bizarre potential roadblocks over everything everywhere, depending on how you look at it. And so somebody's going to try to create a manufacturing enterprise, and if someone else doesn't want them to do it, they can just engage in some sort of what we call lawfare to try to stop them from doing it. So what is in the practical sense of trying to build a space economy based on manufacturing? You have 90% of the stuff built out there, stays there. What does that worldview look like for you?
Okay,
what does that picture look like?
90% of the stuff that we build out there stays out there. Let's talk about that side first, and then talk about the other 10%.
Yeah,
that comes back to Earth.
Well, the two sides of the same question. Yeah.
Well, the problem, first of all, is with the space resources themselves, because let's take into account that we have no idea. For example, in the case of the United States, the Space Force is very much interested in CisLunar operations. So we don't have an idea if there won't be any restrictions. For example, okay, you've created for example, a framework, a shell for a space station. Who can you sell it to? Can you sell it to another US company? Can you sell it to a European company? Can you sell it to somebody who isn't ITAR qualified?
Right.
And also, I'm still waiting. Well, one of my papers is still waiting for for peer review. It has been submitted I don't know, a month ago to Springer. The main idea of this paper was that okay, what are the national security issues of obtaining space resources? Like, for example, can a company that actually produces fuel from water and produces building materials for superstructures and robots on the moon, how much of those resources should they have reserved, for example, for national security issues, for example, for the use by Space Force or any other U.S. agency? Because, well, there is an issue of national security. They might need it, or they might be needed for any other operation. So, like, for example, who gets the priority of contracts, or can you actually we need to remind, because I started this paper from the perspective of, let's look at the old works of Robert Heinlein, of Paul Anderson, and so on, and all those space pioneers. They got something like a letter of marque and reprisal against space. They could, or even a charter for space, we can call it this way. So they had a free hand. Okay, they traded with aliens and so on, but they could actually obtain resources they wanted. They didn't have to ask any Earth and terrestrial administration for any other anything. They just got there, went there, obtain resources, produce something. Like in the Satan's world, they had the space manufacturing was present there, because there was the unique the unique environment there. But anyway, they didn't need to ask anybody for permission. There was no idea of government supervision. There was no idea of the authorization was something like even prior to 19th century level of authorization of maritime operations. So anyway, we actually need to look at this. Okay, so this is the basis. But then you go, to the idea that everything that stays there, it's the 90% is staying there. Okay, so from the perspective of space law, okay, this is the extension of jurisdiction and control of a state. So we can assume that, okay, United States has passed something like the American Free Space Commercial Enterprise Act, like from the 2017, that actually included the idea of space manufactured objects. Okay, so let's say that the Congress and the Senate has passed, and the President has signed a similar bill. Okay, so this is we have this thing clear, right? But then you go into astropolitics. Then you go that everything is a extension of jurisdiction and control.
Yes.
And while it's on the moon, okay, everything is on the moon. because well, the moon is still within our gravity influence and within our political influence, but we need to take into account one thing. You need to take into account that okay, if you develop space manufacturing capabilities around the moon, you go to Mars,
Right.
like not even ASAP, but you go to Mars because you've just tested that. Okay, I can do repairs. I can extract oxygen. Well, we actually know we can. The first ISRU experiment was actually on Mars.
Yep.
It was Moxie, but
Yep.
okay, you can extract oxygen. You can extract raw materials. You can recycle. You can recycle space debris. You can recycle. You can hulk your space object, your rocket, and make it into a provision. Well,
Habitat. Yeah.
a yeah, a primary space station. Like you can do most of those things. So you go further and further and further. But this is the problem where the space law is actually well, this is the problem of space law because you go further and further. So you have jurisdiction, control, and you have authorization and responsibility for those operations.
Okay.
And they
All
are
right.
so far beyond, they gain their own autonomy. They have to gain their own autonomy because you cannot micromanage everything from Earth. And well, that's also my problem with the lack of regulations. We are not certain that regulations over space manufacturing won't be a administratory micromanagement like in a very old 4X game like it was called the Master of Orion, where
Right.
you controlled every part of every planet you actually own. So yeah, this would
Good
be
luck.
a pain for all space manufacturing companies because only the biggest companies would actually have those uh, well, bureaucratic departments to deal with all those regulations and with the micromanagement and well, central control. Even in the science fiction of the 70s and 80s, we can recall there was the idea of the power sets. And while
Yep.
the power set is a great idea, there were many scenarios where they were micromanaged. That oh, sorry, we cannot use those power sets to power your or a moon station because well, California needs all the energy and so on, like in Joe Haldeman's Tricentennial. But
Yep.
anyway, so we're the space colonies, the O'Neill colonies. This is also a good idea with space manufacturing, because okay, we were talking about jurisdiction and control. So you have a small habitat, or a group of small robots, or a robots and and a group of facilities. But then you go to something like even Jeff Bezos came back to this idea with a large space station that is actually a small town in a bottle, like
Yeah. Yeah.
or a company town in a bottle, like like it was a reference in the work of it was T.A. Heppenheimer, Towards the Suns and his colonies in space. Anyway, this is a very interesting idea because you actually this is the only way, well, the only case where you can call something a space colony, because space colony in the legal terms cannot exist because they are extensions of jurisdiction and control over a land.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in this enclosed space, that is a small town, that actually can be called a colony because well, it falls under the jurisdiction and control. But in the case of well, space manufacturing, we also need to take into account that well, there is going to be a political tension and probably some shifts in international law made by the Artemis blocks. The Artemis blocks and the ILRS blog, the International Lunar
National
Research Station
Research
blog, because
Station.
uh, we are because that was how
Well,
international space law was shaped initially.
wait, wait a second. Wait a second. First of all, there's a question I want to get to from our producer, but um, talk for a second about, we kind of threw Senegal under a bus a moment ago. They're number 56 in the Artemis Accords. I think the International Lunar Research Station from China has, I think, 11 or 12 signatories there. Does that matter? Does that matter? Are these treaties useful in the development of these regulations that you're describing?
First of all,
the
they are
treaties
not. First of all, they are not treaties in the sense of international space law. They are not even very close to how well the European partners or Japan treats the International Space Station agreement. Because, well, for the United States, it's an executive agreement. It's not even an international agreement. For France, for example, it is a international agreement, so that's a bit of a problem of how you actually
that's interesting.
interpret. Okay, but
hold on,
Artemis Accords,
It's
it's a partner agreement, and same with ILRS, because they are both partner agreements. They don't have main documents like, for example, the International Space Stations has the IGA.
Yeah, but
the Artemis doesn't still have a IGA, but they can be a basis for new space laws. That's actually where we could actually draw something that the developments, but the bigger developments will come with the creation of the LunarNet and other lunar ventures. Because first of all, you would have to have zoning laws in order to secure the far side for the optical telescopes, the radio telescopes, and gravitometric experiments, and detectors. Also, you would probably, because there would be a single lunar time zone, there would probably be a new form of an agreement between the blocks, because they would try to. And third of all, with auto space manufacturing, landing, safety zones, and so on, you would actually have to create something like a zoning law, because imagine you have a group of objects that are like peppering the moon. Like you've sent something, a 1 unit CubeSat sized rovers, landers, whatever. They are like 2 meters apart.
Okay.
But spread out, like for example, you would have like smart dust. You remember the idea of using smart dust as electronics on the moon. So you pepper it all over, and suddenly nobody can enter this space because they could cause harmful interference. So that's a form of area denial in here. But and in the case of area denial, remember, in space you cannot on the moon you cannot build fortifications, but every crude habitat is essentially a bunker.
Right. Okay.
Even it's an unarmed, if it functions as a bunker.
Okay. Go ahead. Here's the thing. You spent the last 30 minutes or so very, very articulate about what the problems are. What's the way forward for you? Let's see, say in the next 5 years. Let's say notice how I stuck that in there? The next 5 years, what do you see to make changes that will actually work and make things work better for everybody?
And you only have the 2-minute answer.
Okay.
We're out of time.
Start with proper national laws regarding the products of space manufacturing, meaning both the products that remain out there, meaning the space manufactured objects, and also you have to regulate the space products that are going to be either used only within space stations or go back. Though those smaller space products would be more regulated by terrestrial laws, like for example FDA and others and other industry standards, because if they have to go to consumer or to the industry back on Earth, we need to know that they are safe. Okay, that's the first way forward. Second is the creation of proper authorization techniques. The proper authorization schemes and frameworks, because you need to have clarity. Everybody from the investor to everybody in the operation needs to have clarity over what are the limits, and where can they push, and where should they stop. because well, we need to recall that there are many startups who well shoot for the moon, but sometimes they don't shoot for the moon, they just ram into the moon. To call it this way, like the scientific hooliganism argument. So this is a
Okay.
problem that we
Okay.
are going to face. We need to have legitimate regulations, and also there needs to be something like an intergovernmental agreement on stemming from the Artemis Accords, but regarding space manufactured
All right.
objects.
Okay, got about 30 seconds. Next, what does 25 years away look like?
Well, we have different scenarios coming in because well, we have you have political shifts, you have problems with like wars, conflicts, terrorism. But in the case of space, you would have to invest very, very much in anti home built ASAT technologies because at some point terrorists will use it. And Michael is laughing at
No,
it, but
I agree.
I think I think he read Kim Stanley Robinson's
Oh, yeah.
2312.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, or even James Cambias's
Yeah,
The Corsair.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that, we
So yeah,
and on that we have to go. I'm sorry, but Kamil, it's amazing being able to talk to you. I hope we get to do this again another time in the coming months. We'd love to have you. You have a very interesting perspective that I haven't heard from any of the other space lawyers that have been in our program. So thank you so much for coming. And we'll see you again.
Thank you. Hey.
Okay, guys. Well, there's no guest on Thursday, but anything can happen in the next 72 hours. So hang in there, and we'll always have scurrilous commentary about the latest news and controversies, as always, 8 p.m. Eastern this coming Thursday. And on that, from the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, this is Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.